We did it.
All right.
We're not totally technologically dumb.
Okay, how's it
Did
going,
it.
everybody? We haven't done this in a bit, so we got Saul and Jeff joining me today, and we're going to go through kind of a little bit of everything here, kind of talking all about Q1, the state of Amazon, state of e-commerce in general, some new things going on with the platform, with softwares, with just a little bit of everything, and how to be profitable this year and not kill yourself with credit card fees, all that fun stuff. How's it going, everybody?
Good.
We're good. Yeah, I don't know who you're talking to, but it was everyone over with us. But
I don't know. I don't know how many.
we're doing awesome. I mean, we can kind of get it going. People will trickle in as they trickle in. It's good to see you guys. It's been a minute since we did this.
Yeah.
I know you had. I hope you all had a wonderful Q4. I know Jeff was hitting the slopes. Well deserved in Q1. But yeah, I'm excited a lot has changed since we last got together, right? A lot of changes on the Amazon front, and even I would say even changes socially, right? I think people talking about e-commerce or different things right now has shifted slightly. Um, so I know there's been some really great questions that have come up, and I'm happy to dive into them today.
Yeah, I think we really, I don't know, the last time we did one of these probably in the summer, and then Q4
Yeah, in the
hit.
summer.
Yeah, in the summer, early fall, then Q4 hits, and then January and February ski season, and now we're trying to get back into it. I've been a little more active again on Twitter now that I'm not living on the slopes. Now I'm down to a weekender for the next couple of weeks, and then soon will be time to pack it in and call it a season. So
Until next year.
Yeah.
How did Q4? How did it go for you? Out of curiosity, I mean, you should jump into did you? I mean, obviously we all sell, but scale wise, you sell the most on this call. Did you notice any differences this Q4?
Yeah, I mean, I think Q4 went. We had a better Q4 than we did, in 2023. There was also some, I guess what's the word I'm looking for, but others people, negative. We obviously right. What was it, November 13th or 15th? They just about 20% of the Nike listings, or I should say 20% of the sellers on Nike just got zapped. So we didn't get affected by any of the the restrictions, but you definitely saw the seller counts drop. So I think that helped a little bit with seeing some of the prices stay a little stronger this year than they last in Q4 than they did in the past. And it was some other brands too. I mean, I know people lost Lego, people lost, especially like the Q4 sellers of Lego, right? Like they don't sell much year round. Yeah. And then it seemed that like they sort of used some form of, Nike just seemed random, because I know 3 $20 million sellers that had 8 figures or 7 figures of Nike inventory just went restricted.
Yeah, I got hit with Disney. I got hit with Lego. I got hit with Mattel. They all hit me.
Fisher Price got me. That was the one that I got that like Q4 a few times was like, damn it. And I think Fisher Price got a lot because there was definitely some good Fisher Price stuff. And I was, not able to get into them. But that was the only, restriction that I got. But it definitely, it's definitely a scary thing, and I think I posted about this on Twitter, today, about like, I think one of the questions was, can you still, operate, a 8-figure arbitrage business starting now and grow that to, to scale, even if it's not 8 figures? Can you really scale that right now, primarily on Amazon? And, it's definitely scary when you see some of the things that are going down, on Amazon with, people just with, really no, warning and no justification per se. Obviously Amazon just sort of just says, hey, there was, I forget how they worded it, but people just got zapped. And it really seemed almost like they just said, oh, we're going to take 20% of the sellers off to reduce the seller count, and whatever that termination factor was, it was not, given. So,
Yeah, I know when I started a few years ago, it was like, private labels, the hardest thing to do. Arbitrage is so easy. Jump into that. Don't worry about wholesale later kind of thing. And now it's kind of flipped a little bit where, wholesale is still viable, but it's a little scary that if you have that much stock and get hit, then what do you do with all that? Like just the amount to pull that back out of inventory if you can't sell through it all is a pretty substantial price to pay. And then, private label still has its downfalls with, you got to deal with all the things private label, getting the product, listing it, dealing with it, seeing if people even like it. If you have the right, if you got shipped the product that you actually try to create, and if it sells well, and you can waste a lot of money doing that as well. So there's a lot of things now that have kind of shifted and changed. And then that opened up a lot of advantages to some of the other platforms. You still get way more eyeballs on Amazon than you do on like Walmart or any of the other ones. But yeah, it's now shifted a little bit where people are saying, okay, well, maybe I need to give this Walmart thing a try here.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's certainly a place for doom and gloom as well, which I think that some people are going to like naturally want to fall into. It's way more fun. Fun is a strong word. It's way more, people like to talk about the bad a lot, right? And it's like, gets more views, gets more eyes, gets more clicks. But I mean, there are definitely people on social media that are talking about the other flip side, and I'm very much pro on the other side. Like, I'm still very bullish on selling online. I still think, I mean, Jeff's been around longer than me. I'm coming up on 8.5 years now. This is like the same. I don't know. I feel like we just keep going through the rinse and repeat.
It's cycles, yeah.
I do think the biggest difference I'm seeing this cycle is the red restricted. So before, that's like when I say that, it's like people getting restricted is not new. You could get re-restricted in a brand 7 years ago. Like that still happened.
Yeah.
What I didn't see too often though was people getting restricted and just not even being able to apply. And that is a little more scary and a little more annoying. I think the changes they're making now with, hey, you're kicked off, but you got to send in 400 units or an invoice with 400, 300, 200. I think that sucks, but I also think there's a huge moat there that's forming. I'm eagerly interested to see what happens Q3, Q4 this year if they don't reel that back in, because I think you're going to see a lot of like cream rising to the top. There's going to be a lot of sellers who are still interested in active getting ungated and being one of 5 or 10 on a listing instead of one of 40. The only thing that gets me frustrated is like I've been kicked off some listings, and you go on the listing and you look at who's selling it.
Yes.
There's like guys on there with like 30% reviews and they're like 3 stars. I'm like, I don't know. The choice that they're making is confusing to me.
Yeah.
But
yes.
I think it's going to be okay. And for me personally, my business, I can't say was heavily affected. I would say I lost about 20% of my ASINs through brands that are now restricted, but 15% of those, like 15 of the 20%. So let's say 80% of that I can get reapproved in. There's a very few that I'm like hard red restricted. The most annoying one is probably Pokemon, which I'm just totally blocked out of. And Disney Store. Those are the 2 that I was kind of, I dabbled in more than the others. But I did lose, Mattel and Hasbro. I lost some of those like more nuanced, interesting ones, but they're all ungateable, and I think that's fine. If I need to go the route of doing that, I will. Especially because we're still seeing Amazon invoices work. We're still seeing, people on timeline are still getting calls to work, and I don't arguably think that they should. Like I think Amazon doesn't want them to, but they do.
Yeah.
And it's never a guarantee, but like it's clear that Amazon hasn't changed everything, and they're just making it slightly more difficult.
Well, it used to be like the rule of thumb was send 10 of anything and you can get it approved. Now you're seeing 100, 400,000, depending on what
it's going to cost
is.
you more money. They're kicking off the hobby sellers is really what they're doing. You can't come in here with $200 and get ungated in Lego. You used to be able to get ungated in Lego and EED. I don't know.
Yeah, like
if you're around for that.
Yeah, like
big storage boxes.
Yeah, just buy a few little things. Did they used to have the keychains there or whatever? I can't remember if they did.
Yeah, they were like big into like, and then they kind of got rid of Lego like years ago now. But yeah, it used to be cheaper, right? I think that's the biggest change. It used to be cheaper to start selling. it still can be very cheap. You're just not going to be able to sell the big brands, which is fine. I think for the first 11 months of my selling career, I didn't even have an LLC. I was never approved in anything. I just kind of sold what I could.
Yeah.
And you can still do, to Jeff's question earlier, I mean, there are still people out there doing 8 figures used books. Like, you can still do this without having to go deep on these big brands. It's not the end of the world. It's just, you're going to have to pivot. You have to pivot. You're going to have to treat it like a business and, kind of get your feet under you.
Yeah. I mean, we talk a lot about building moats and trying to, create things to protect yourself. And you look at, sellers like Jeff, who's got thousands of, ASINs versus, someone like myself who's, probably, averages between like 80 and 150. I'm a lot more at risk for something going wrong, especially if I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to source this site and I got a bunch of Nike, or like what just happened with Adidas. I'm a lot more at risk than somebody like Jeff. Jeff's going to have to, lean a little bit harder and pivot. Now it's going to hit him, sure. But he's able to pivot a lot easier, I would say, than I am, where I got to say, okay, now I got to check whole new brands, whole new sites, because while I might be sourcing, 20 sites, Jeff's sourcing, 100 and something. So it's a lot more difficult to pivot if you're smaller. So I think the key, like you're saying, if you want to scale to that 8-figure range, is to, be wide a little bit with it, have systems in place to be able to source from multiple sources where you're not going to be, as at much risk for if a brand goes down. It's like, I didn't realize how many things were Mattel until Mattel hit. And I was like, wow, a lot of my Q4 strategy just went out the window, like Uno, all the things. I was like, I didn't even know these things were sold by Mattel because I never really paid attention to it. I was like, all right, I'm good to sell it. I'll just list it. And now it's like, you really got to pay attention to that stuff.
Yeah, and to what you said earlier, I mean, multi-market. I mean, that's gonna be your key to getting scaled faster. Now, I'm not saying you can certainly, to the question Jeff got earlier, I mean, someone starting today, March 19th, by the end of this year, if they really, really wanted and pushed, they could be a 7-figure seller. Do I think that they would? Do I think that's the safest thing, or like, would I recommend it for most people? No, I like to grow slow. I like to not have to take a lot of debt on, but it's possible. I think the faster way to think about it, though, is sourcing for multiple markets at the same time. So for example, I had to pull. I think I'm getting like 450 or 500 different products back to the warehouse from red restricted brands. My goal is Walmart and eBay. I'm going to have to diversify, and that's, I think, going to help me moving forward feel more confident in my Q4 buys. To your point, like, I buy a lot of toys all year for Q4. It would make me nervous if I was just selling them on Amazon a little bit, just in case something were to happen. But if I feel like, all right, well, worst case, I can turn around and sell them Walmart, and a lot of toys, honestly, are still profitable on eBay even, particularly in the mix of Q4. I'm going to be less concerned doing that this year than I would be otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing, and I think people forget it, and it seems like it's still holding true, is that if it has something where it says you have to order 100 units, it's not necessarily one product. It's that brand. So like I've just recently was able to get ungated with having 3 different products on, an invoice, or sending the invoices in from the same place within the same time period to show, hey, this was an order that was placed here. And they ungated it. Now, maybe I got lucky in some cases, but historically that's been the same key, is that it doesn't have to be all one product. It can be from that brand. And a lot of times they'll allow that as well.
Yeah. Or all one order. I think that's
one order was the biggest thing, or one day.
But yeah, you can combine invoices, right? And they've always allowed that. No one on this call, no one anywhere in the world, maybe except for the person that wrote the script, that manages the team, can say confidently what Amazon's going to do once you click submit. But like, yes, I mean, you can certainly get approved with those things. You might have to fight. I think what Reezy recently kind of tweeted about his saga with getting re-ungated in Nike. It took him 3 attempts with the same invoice. Sometimes you just got to like push and not give up when you want it done. But that hasn't changed. I mean, that's been that way.
Oh yeah, it's always been that way. I mean, we had a brand direct order. Yeah, I don't know. I think I got like 30 grand. I think I realized I was restricted. I was like, oh, it's no big deal. I'm buying from the brand and I'll get it ungated. So we ordered it. It showed up. I sent the invoice and they're like, nope. And then I was like, yo, we got a letter of authorization. Nope. Yo, I think we fought with them for like 2 months. At some point, I went and bought their product on Amazon. I was like, okay, well, let me try submitting an Amazon invoice because you're not accepting it from the brand. And I've had that multiple times. Guy back in the day, I had an account with Spin Master and I was buying directly from Spin Master. And I forget, it was one of their products within, a subline within Spin Master. And I ended up getting ungated with EE invoices because they wouldn't take the damn Spin Master invoices. I'm like, I'm buying this direct from Spin Master. Like, I can get
Well,
you.
don't you know you gotta stand up, turn around, jump up and down, tap your head, and then click submit. Like that's the only way to get it done.
Well, then you'll submit with an actual distributor. It's well known, but happens to not be well known to Amazon. And then they're like, well, show proof that they are able to sell this. Then you got to ask them for it or find out from the brand and have the brand send you an email saying that whatever place you're buying it from is authorized to sell their products. And then you can use that email, but then you got to explain why you didn't get the email directly from your supplier and you got it from the brand itself. And it's a lot of back and forth, but if you want to get ungated in something like Nike or like another equally as big brand, you're going to want to fight for that.
But again, I think as I always saying here is it can happen. These same challenges have existed since since the beginning. Like, when I started, when I first, this is year 10, I've been doing this for about 9.5 years. I couldn't sell, you couldn't sell grocery, you couldn't sell beauty, you couldn't sell health and personal care. I think I was open in Lego, but I think I'm going to be gated at Nike. I was gated on a lot of shoe brands. I don't know if I was immediately gated in shoes, but I didn't start selling shoes. And then when I went to sell shoes, everything was gated. But, you slowly, knock them off. Like, you sell the brands you can, you build up your store. The more you sell, the more things start to open. So back to sort of the original discussion, can you still scale this up starting now? I think you can. It's just, it's
different.
It's different, but it can still be done. And the same thing with I did it too is, and what I think what you were alluding to Saul already was, you can't go from brand new to 5 million in 18 months, or you can, but you're putting yourself at a huge risk. I mean, it took me a long time to get where I am. This didn't happen. I didn't start selling. We did 175,000 units in December. That didn't happen, in year one. It didn't even happen in year 4. It wasn't until year 6, probably something like that, where, each year we grew and we doubled, and, you tried to accelerate that. The only way to do that is taking on massive debt to make it happen. Because if you go at the right pace, you're just turning your profits into it, and you can minimize the need to take on debt outside of, obviously we all put our stuff on credit cards and earn our points and whatever, but you're trying to keep that, minimizing that risk of, oh crap, I don't have the money to pay that credit card bill. And, is what you want to, try to balance as you're trying to.
Well, and you also have the other side of that is if you're selling that many units in, say, like however many units you're selling in December, you don't actually know, are you going to sell through everything? Are you going to have stock left over? And then you end up having, January stuff that you got to try to get rid of or sell or liquidate or do whatever you want to do with it. And now you got to do the whole thing over again. So that the next year you're setting yourself up for doing the same or more. So it's certainly a balance. But you look at Deke just put here that, he's got a neighbor down the way from him that's doing 1.5 million a month in books. I mean, I've heard since I've started, arbitrage is dying, all these things. And again, everybody says that happens every year with it. I've heard, booksellers, there's no way to make that much money anymore with just about everybody you talk to, but there's somebody who's doing it. So it's if you're creative with it and you stay on top of it and you have systems built in place, you can do a lot with anything.
It's wild.
Yeah, media is still one of my favorite and somehow least talked about on the social platforms that we're on. I think Facebook talks about it a lot, and you get some niche YouTubers that are really into it. But I mean, there are not just books. I mean, there are countless folks out there doing millions in video games, use electronics, etc.
Yeah,
and I think it's become a slightly new addiction for me. Is the used video game used console market on Amazon. I've dabbled over the years, but I'm like, all right, I might take this a little more seriously in 25.
So are you
cool
doing
about
that
used
through?
stuff.
Are you doing that all through Merchant Fulfill then? And are you tracking the serial
Well,
codes, serial numbers, and
I
everything?
mean, Merchant Fulfilled, I wasn't as pro. I just tweeted about tweeted something that caught my eye. I wasn't super FBM-y. Like I'm not a huge FBM guy. We have the warehouse, but I don't want to store. I mean, Jeff mentioned. I mean, I don't ship 175,000 units in a month, but like, there's no shot that Jeff could store all those in his warehouse. Right? Like FBA has value, but I am becoming more FBM heavy because of some of the recent changes Amazon's made, and certainly some of these, yes, like higher priced consoles, things like that. But I'll still FBA, games, Nintendo Wii's and stuff. And I'm not really deep into the weeds of it yet. We'll see how deep I want to go. But the cool thing about used stuff is it's used, so you can actually, you're not as worried about its where it came from, right? Like obviously it needs to be real and it needs to not be stolen. But you don't need the receipt the same way that you do a new product. So you can garage sale, you can buy it off eBay, you can do all of these different things to get it, and that kind of opens up a whole world of interesting, fun things. And the margin is insane. It's just you got to really get to know the market.
So if you are buying,
I think you're.
If you're buying,
couldn't hear you.
Flipping used video games, how are you? And you're mentioning, hey, you don't need that, but what happens when they lose, a shipment of consoles?
Can you hear us, Saul? I think his earbuds died.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know. Yeah, I lost everything. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yep, we got you now. So I hear you on the used stuff, but can't you still get IA complaints and you lost inventory? If you're FBAing it, right? MF, you have some of those risks go down, but obviously within FBA, you can send in your shipment and they just lose it all. How do you deal with that from a used perspective?
You can generate invoices. Like essentially, you're not faking that you bought it anywhere, but you're showcasing that this is what I did send in, and this is the value of it. And Amazon will occasionally accept those, like almost like a packing slip. Like, here's proof that I packed this, and here's the value of it. And I've seen Amazon approve those. When it comes to authenticity, I think that's why it's incredibly important to have eyes on all your products before they go out. I don't trust prep centers too much when it comes to this type of product because I want to see it.
I agree.
But yeah, I mean, it can certainly happen. You got to fight where you can and win, but it happens a lot less, I will say. You can still technically get IP complaints with used, but also that happens a lot less.
Yeah, because usually they're not going after the used. A lot of times, even when they're coming after you new, they're like, you can list this used, like just we don't want you selling it new. So
so Amazon knows this. I mean, they have it. They know used stuff isn't going to have the same level of documentation, so they are certainly a little bit more flexible there. But I get nervous building a $10 million business on just used products. But I don't see any reason why you can't add your bottom line with it. And I think if you're starting brand new today, I think it's still so great that I can, if I get on the phone with someone today, brand new, and they want to start on Amazon and they don't want to go through the craziness of getting ungated Nike by 300 units, they can just go to their closet, right, and see, hey, I got some used Nintendo Switch games. And oftentimes the used stuff you can list even if you're not approved in the brand. And they just, you can go and get your little nest egg right there, and you learn the process. That's always the thing. Like, analysis paralysis. Like, just get the stuff in the box, and like ship it out of here. Make a little bit of money first.
I wish they added one more category to use though, where it's like the box was open, but the thing's never been used, or like box is damaged, but it's still brand new, never been open type thing. Because like, if I have I don't want to say like underwear, for instance, but like say you had like underwear where like clearly the box got crumpled up and you don't want to sell it new. People don't want to buy used underwear. But if it
I don't think you can sell clothing used anyway.
Yeah, I just say like if there was something on there that like,
but
you
yeah,
might
no, I
like,
hear what you're saying.
but even if it was like, pacifiers or something, like you don't like, again, you don't want to put like new on it, but it offered to say like, hey, the package has been damaged, but
Like, you're looking at the open box. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're gonna be like, what did Jeff, Saul, and Joe talk about today? Oh, used underwear.
There is a good market on that on eBay.
All right, listen, that's not what this call's about. But so we did have some agenda items that actually kind of intertwine with some of this. So we've talked already about like scalability. We talked about the Amazon markets. We talked about a little bit of selling across markets. But we could talk about some questions that we've seen on Twitter in our DMs and like what is better. Like when it comes, let's say you assume just Amazon. In 2025, do you just do wholesale? Do you just do OA, A2A, private label, RA? Like, what does it matter? Do we have recommendations? Obviously happy to hear your thoughts. We kind of like addressed it a little bit already. Like, they're all still viable, but if it was someone, what would you tell? I was like, what would you tell your cousin? What would you tell your brother if they were just starting out? Like someone that you want to see be successful. Like, yeah, sure, they all work, but like I recommend kind of this one.
Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah. I see it all the time with the gurus that, the PL gurus, you can't make money reselling. And then the wholesale folks, you can't make money on arbitrage. And arbitrage folks just seem to get picked on. I don't think they go after anybody, but yeah, in my perspective, they all work. I mean, I don't do private label, but we do A to A, OA, RA, and wholesale. And, beginning, I wouldn't recommend necessarily doing all of them, but sort of research them and see what's a good fit for you, right? Like if you're a very social person, you have sales background, wholesale might be a good fit for you, or even RA to an extent, because a lot of RA is building that relationship with store managers and getting access to inventory in the back room before it gets onto the floor, or negotiating discounts. If you're a little less social and computer data guy, then OA is more your area. And and I think it's really understanding your skill set and dabbling in them all. And then as you're new, you're going to spread yourself thin if you're trying to do all three. Pick one and build that up, and then as you build up a team, then add other stuff. I mean, that's sort of what how I did it. I did mix a RA and OA, but I didn't do a lot of RA. I was mostly OA, and then I hired out an RA team because I knew I wasn't my skill set or my desire to be going into stores, but it was a way I can scale. So let's add the RA side, and then hey, let's add the wholesale. And again, I'm not a big wanting to dial a bunch of people and call them to get an account. So I hire salespeople and I say, go get me accounts. You guys, go, you dial and you call people and you build the relationships, and I'll tell you what to buy. So to me, they all work. It's just a matter of finding the one that is a good fit for you. Yeah. And again, when you're ready to scale, to me, there's no reason not to do both of all, arbitrage and wholesale, or arbitrage and private label, because the more, in this day and age of selling on Amazon, the more you can diversify yourself, it helps minimize the risk of, hey, something, you lose a store, you lose a sorting method, you lose a shopper, you lose a brand. The more diversified you are, the less impact it is.
And there's some in between stuff too, where like they've made it a lot more difficult to create bundles, but you can still do that, and you can still kind of differentiate stuff. Now other people can hop on them, but for a while you can sell that. You can also do something that's kind of like in between, where you can discuss a brand creating something specifically for you, whether it's a color or some sort of item that might not be being sold to everybody else. There's a lot of like creative things you can do, and I still think that if you're brand new to it, that's a huge hurdle to try to overcome if you're going to try to just start this from scratch. But like we all run groups here, different Discord groups, and Saul's got his the buy box group that has all the coaching in it, and you see the same stuff all the time where it's people are trying to figure out, can they do this as a side hustle and is it viable, and then also can they change this into something full time. And I think that both of them, the answer is still yes. No matter what model you choose to go after, you just have to you really got to know your numbers. You have to pay attention to all that, and you have to put time into it. This is not a 2 hour a day, thing. If you want to start from scratch and do it full time, it's just not going to happen.
It's very fair. I mean, I'd love to finish this point, but then I do want to touch on something Jeff said, which I think is like massively important when we get into the scale conversation, which is team. I mean, I'm just going to mirror kind of what you guys have already said. I mean, I think it's location dependent and resource dependent for which one you start with. I do think RA is like best value when you first start still. But you have to live in a place that you can RA. Some people just don't live in a location that's like feasible. They have 2 hour drive to the nearest Walmart.
Yeah.
In which case, obviously, you got to play to your strengths, and you're in that case, it's going to be more time than anything on OA. But yeah, I think it all works. But I think you have to understand you're gonna like, and I hate to use, I don't really swear, but you're gonna eat shit for a little bit, right? Like you're gonna do one and is not going to like do amazing for a month or 2 months. I think there's like this expectation that comes with starting any business, particularly one that you see a lot of people online talk about being highly successful in, that you're going to find that same success week 1, week 5. You're not, it's compounded. So, you're going to have to put the reps in. That's what coaching and live calls and stuff can help you with, is to kind of cut through some of that, but it's still going to be you having to do it. And whichever one you pick, you just devote time to it and you evolve, which goes into the next point though, which is team. I think this is like, I slept on it for years. I'm mad I waited so long. Jeff got there so fast and figured it out. Like, this is what he needed to do. Cause obviously I think, Jeff, you had kids at the time already and you had like other responsibilities. You just couldn't do everything. But if you can do something and figure out how to do it and pass it on to someone else, that is a wonderful skill. Not everyone can do that either. Managing people is not easy. And finding the right people is not easy. But if you can, that opens up your time and space to then go make more money, either doing the same thing with them or trying something else, like Jeff said, like switching models and doing a little bit of OA or RA opposite. Or, you see the value in wholesale, like he said, but you just don't have it, that you don't want to pick up the phone or you don't have time to, but you can see the value there. So you can help and train someone to do it. Man, I think I see people like, was it, you trip over dollars to pick up pennies or whatever that saying is, right? Like, you're kind of like, you're going after like, oh no, I don't need to hire someone. I'm just going to work harder. I'm just going to grind, and I'm going to work 12-hour days, and I'm going to hit all the stores. And that's profitable for sure, because you in your mind, you're thinking, well, if I hire someone to do it, I'm going to have to pay them and my profit's going to go down. But like, the reality is you will have to spend money on it, but you'll make more in the long run, and you'll just be able to like do more for the business, do more for yourself. We have one main employee now. I have a part-time second person that comes on board when needed. This started last year. I should have done it 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Sometimes I'll pay $3,000 a month in wages. But I'm 100% making far more than that, because now I don't have to prep anything. I don't have to go to the warehouse. I don't have to do any of like some of the thinking that was required there. It's 20 hours a week that I get to source. Next stage is going to be hiring a sourcer. That's something also I should have done a long time ago. So, it's all a value add to your company. If you know what you're doing, you can't do it. You can't hire someone if you don't know how to do it yourself. I see that mistake all the time. I'm 2 weeks in and I want to hire a sourcing VA. Does anyone know
Yep.
that's already knows how to source? I'm like, well, how do you know if they're doing it right? How do you know they're not working for other people? How do you know, like, your edge is you and your brain, and ideally you want to like download your brain into someone. But if you're at a place where you are spending consistently, man, I would heavily think about it.
Or if you just don't have the time. I mean, you got guys like, he was 16 years old, Abe, who we interviewed. I mean, this during Q4, there was 0% chance that he could get out all the packages that had to get out in a day. I mean, he was going to school, he was doing all the other things, and then he was trying to buy as much as he could. There was just no way that he was physically going to be able to send the stuff out. So he had some of his buddies, he hired them, they came over and, pizza and hang out and, paid them something. And they worked for Q4, and that was it. And then you have other people that we talk to. They have part-time people come in a few days a week, process whatever they need to do. Or I think Jeff even has somebody that's specifically for items that come into return. He wants to list on eBay. I mean, there's all sorts of options you can do to free your time up as well. It's not just, something where you need to have it because you're growing at some exponential rate.
Yeah, I mean, time is money, which is a cliche saying, but it's true. And mental health is important too. Like, you can burn out and not source as effectively because you're just doing it too much. So yeah, I totally agree with all of that. I think
my single biggest thing was getting a prep center. That was the first key to being able to have more time for me. After that was, I got someone to source, but again, like that's a lot of time you have to invest in that person to make sure that, like you said, that they're not, working for somebody else. The leads are good, that you can go through all the leads and, give feedback on them. It's not just like, okay, you tell someone I'm going to pay them, however much money an hour, and they're going to produce, stuff that's going to be solid gold leads all day. That just doesn't happen.
Yeah. For me, the big one. So I was quick. I think like week 2, I might have hired a prep center because, I ordered everything, and it was back in the Sears Craftsman's days. And I just had like boxes and boxes of Craftsman, and I'm boxing these things up, and it's a nightmare, and I'm trying to get it and then I'm like, I did a little more research, and you say, okay, you can send this to a tax-free state and it can cost me less and I don't have to touch it. So that was a game changer, and really, allowed me to continue to do the full-time job and buy stuff at night. But where I was a little bit slow was sort of the operational admin side. And I do see that as one a lot of people miss of, most people are quick, to maybe not solve, but most people are pretty quick to get the prep and shipping off of their plate. Granted, I think you've had a prep set for a while. Prep center, you just did a lot of your in-house stuff in your warehouse, but and then sourcing, is maybe, I don't know how quick it is, but we were quick to do that. But then the operation tasks, like, we were probably sitting at 3-4 million, and I couldn't source because I was spending all day. At that point, I had a like this RA team, and everybody was dropping stuff on, and I was trying to like upload it, and I was still creating the shipments and like the repricing, and it just sucked so much time. And as soon as I hired an operation person to US based operation person who then hired VAs to manage the easier tasks, and all of a sudden it was like, holy cow, now I got like 40 hours to source, and now you can really, not only am I able to purchase more myself, but then I can put that time towards my sourcers and say, here, or why aren't you looking at that? Check out this store, build lists. And then it really helped us take the next step of, bringing more stuff in, because again, that's what I was good at. Whereas there's other people, that they're really good at the warehousing stuff, so that they want to be involved with that because they're going to build the efficiencies into that. Me, I want to hire, somebody else to do that, who you can manage that and run that for me, so that I can focus on the sourcing, because that's where my skill set lies, and that's sort of what helps stand out and allow us to grow. But if I'm doing all day, setting up repricing, obviously repricing is a whole different animal that I think we should dive into. But just like setting up the repricing is not something I need to be doing. I need to be reviewing at different times
where your value is.
Yeah,
for sure. I mean, I still do a lot of the admin. That's the next step. I think it's probably going to be I don't have enough 40 hours for one person in the warehouse, so it's like probably going to be they'll do both for a bit. Yep. But yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, like, I did use a prep center for a long time. I don't anymore because, like, I just brought it all in. Prep centers are amazing until they could be amazing forever. But if you ever get to a place where you're wanting to have your own space, or you live in a state that is affordable to get space and people, it can actually be cheaper to do it. It's substantially cheaper to do it yourself, depending on how much you're paying for the warehouse, if that's what you want to do. So as scale goes, it depends what you're favoring. Some people favor time freedom. They don't want employees. They don't want to have to manage anyone. They want to travel the world and make some money from their laptop, and that's awesome. But if that's not you, and you are home more, and you want to scale this quote unquote faster. Once you get to a certain stage, actually bringing it in-house saves you substantial. Not only on the prep side, but also on the even the admin side. You know, you have these people that are paying for services to help them claw back refunds. You have people that are, you know, paying for tax related work every month, like bookkeeping. All that stuff could be brought in and save you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a month on, if that's something that you're focusing on. If the bottom line is the most important thing to you. I have a mixture, but I love the warehouse. Like at this point in my life, at least, like I don't see it going anywhere. Maybe.
What percentage of your purchases are tax free though? Too is something you got to look at. Like that's a huge component.
When I first started, that was the biggest value of a prep center. To Just's point, I was saving money because of taxes. But I, you know, me, I mean, I do 70% A2A now, like for the last 4 years, and that's all tax free. So it doesn't matter where I ship it, and for that reason, you know, the warehouse makes even more sense. If you're doing wholesale, warehouse is, you know, potentially going to make more sense. But yeah, if you're in a state that you cannot get tax free, your best places that you source from, there's just no way to go tax free on, then prep center still might be the most affordable option.
Yeah,
if it's tax free.
Yeah, and we use prep centers for, you know, we get as much as we can in house, but you know, the stuff that, you know, essentially tax avoidance, and then the other thing is just flow, right? Like it can be difficult, especially at our scale, where, you know, I said we did 175,000 or whatever units in December, and then we're doing 40,000 units or 50,000 units. I think we probably did 55,000, I think, in January. Like, you know, that's a massive difference. And that's a lot of part-time people I need to bring in to the warehouse to, you know, prep up, ramping up for December, to then, all right, see you guys later in January. And we do bring some temporary people in, and we have a good relationship with the staffing agency that helps as well. But that's where the prep center works well, of like, we monitor what's coming into the warehouse. We monitor, you know, what the orders are coming, you know, wholesale. And hey, we got a bunch coming in. Let's shift. Hey, this stuff isn't tax. We don't have to pay tax on it, but let's shift it to the prep center because we don't have the bandwidth to do it. And, you know, as long as you have a good relationship with the prep center and they can meet your requirements for sending things out, because that's obviously one of the risks with prep centers, right? You're just a number to them, and in Q4 you may have stuff sitting there for 3 weeks, and that time is money. So you need to have a prep center you can trust that's going to flip things quickly.
A bad prep center can destroy your business.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And unfortunately, we've seen a bit more of that in the buy box recently. People shipping stuff to a prep center and just sitting on it for 2 months and just going quiet, and you got to pay your credit card bills. And
yep.
Yeah, I mean, I've been fortunate, and when I first started, I had, you know, one issue, but then that's I think since been corrected. It was a brand new prep center, and they've fixed their systems and everything. But when I had first signed up with them, that was kind of the thing, is it took a while for them to process. The one I use now is actually, again, that's got some downsides too, but it's a very small prep center, but I'm shipping to somebody's house. Like, it's not a warehouse. So there's a massive risks involved in all sorts of things there. And luckily they don't have a huge amount of sellers that sell through them, and they're not sellers themselves. So there's not a lot of risk there, but like it's odd if the stuff doesn't go out in 48 hours from when it arrives in their garage. I mean, they're very good with it. I do have to give them a heads up when I ship pallets and stuff there, because they got to receive them or they got to find a place to put them. But there's some advantages of that. The biggest thing that I can say that's helped me though is if your prep center has a minimum amount that you have to send and you're not quite there, or you're right around where that would be, it's nice because you're now pushing yourself to make sure that you hit those goals. And I think a lot of people pay attention to revenue and dollar amount when really unit count is very, very important to actually scaling this whole thing. And if you can pay attention to how many units you're sending out, and keep growing that, you're going to be in a lot better spot than worrying about what your revenue is.
Always a balance. Yeah. I mean, you're obviously you can get forced into buying the wrong things, or you're just trying to meet.
Yep. I would say I've been there before. Like when I was, you know, a smaller seller, and I think we had like 1,500 units, something I remember like that last week. Okay, let me see what I can order. That's not great, but if I can break even on it, it's better breaking even and, you know, breaking even after the prep fee than just paying the prep fee for something that I'm not shipping. So,
oh yeah, I've definitely purchased 50 bright yellow XXL t-shirts before. and got stuck with them and paid probably more in storage fees than I did on profit on that.
Yeah. So it's a balance game, but yeah, there's a few prep centers I absolutely love, and when people ask, I recommend them because I think it can still 100% elevate your game to the next level once you get there. But all this is coming off a scale question, so it's not necessarily the end all be all of scale. There was a question in YouTube in the YouTube chat, and then we can get to the repricing.
This one,
yeah, this should be a fairly easy one. How do you go about identifying what you're already engaged in so you can put your focus there? I hope that we're all alive when Amazon decides to allow you to just like see a master list of your brands that you're approved in and not approved in, but they don't. So the easiest way is just keep sourcing and make notes as you go. Obviously, there's tons of ways to do that. If you're doing OA, there's lots of calculators I'll load on the Amazon page and it'll just like tell you right away if you're approved or not. If you're scanning, obviously the apps will do the same thing. But it's just going to be kind of you going through the list as you're sourcing, or find a list somewhere in some group or online that you can kind of just quickly check. But people ask all the time, what brand should I focus on getting approved in? And the reality is like, you're going to have to make a hit list as you're sourcing of the profitable ones that you find. And if you're coming across a brand routinely and you're not approved in it and it's profitable, that's probably moving to the top of your list of brands that you should focus on getting approved in, because you have built-in profit. You know exactly where to source from and what products to buy already. And then just keep going that same direction. And eventually, over a year, 2 years, there'll be a lot fewer brands that you're going to come across that you're not approved in than you are right now. So I wish there was like an easy one-click option, but there really isn't.
I know when I'm buying stuff, I'm adding it into Keepa for tracking, and then Keepa's then flagging me and saying like, hey, this thing's on its way going up in price. You should probably rebuy it again, basically. So when I'm setting those things, I'm constantly seeing them. I kind of know what brands to like focus on, because I'll see the same names over and over again, even if I don't realize that I'm buying like, a bunch of Hot Wheels or something. Like I'm going to see that pop up and then be like, okay, that's something I need to focus on. I think like with newer sellers, you don't need to go and get ungated and everything everywhere. Like Saul's saying, is try to focus on what you're buying and what you're getting ungated, and see if there's other stuff that you can become profitable buying those same brands. Then you also got to be careful. Is just Amazon can gate stuff whenever they want, however they want. It's their platform. They're ultimately trying to protect the customer and have the customer experience to be the best. In most cases, I would say that's pretty true.
Well,
there's a few I could think of that just recently that I don't know is true, but in any case, you're gonna start seeing stuff that you're gonna focus on more, and you're gonna get good at buying certain things. Like you're gonna know that like just because you're ungated in something doesn't mean you should buy it, and it doesn't mean you should buy it again, even if you've gotten ungated in it. You really need to look at your numbers, see how you did, and then keep buying. So I wouldn't necessarily focus on like how many things, but if you have a category that's ungated, like say groceries, look at what's in groceries and try to see what you're ungated in, or that can get ungated without having to buy 100 units. And then like Saul said, keep a tracking sheet. If you spend that much money to get 100 units ungated, to get ungated in that category, you should probably figure out how to buy more and be more profitable so you can keep doing that.
I think that answers it. I think that was the only question that I saw. Obviously,
yeah, there was a lot of comments, not as many questions. And if you do have questions, just drop them in here and we'll try to answer them as we go, as we cycle through some stuff. I know we're coming up on close to an hour here, but I know one thing that we kind of wanted to touch on was the credit cards. You want to kind of talk a little bit about that, Saul?
Yeah, we can do the credit card and we can do a little repricing. And,
I'm not sure what anybody wants to see. The one here, credit cards, repricing. If you want to quickly say something, we might pivot slightly here. But
it is a paperweight at this point. Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about it early on a little bit around scale. Like you can grow very fast, like Jeff said. If you want to do 0 to 5 million, it's possible. Not possible without debt, unless you're seeing a pile of cash when you start the business already. Obviously, most people use credit cards. They use some kind of loan. They do something. I think the big thing I always see is it going to go against the grain. The big thing I always see, right, is and this is more of like mid-level sellers. 0% APR credit cards are amazing. I love them. You should love them. Take advantage of them. But it's also, there are opportunities and times where holding balances, if you need to, or paying some level of interest is not the end of the world, especially when we're talking about longer hold items, which kind of go hand in hand with our repricing strategy. There are some products that you're going to potentially buy in February that you're going to sell in December that are going to give you 300% return on your money, and you're going to pay maybe 20% APR on the credit card. If you absolutely need to, like if you need to carry that balance, math works out, right? It's actually, you make substantially more than you're paying in interest. I'm not going to sit here and tell everyone, hey, you should go pay interest on your credit card. What I'm going to say is like, I have paid interest on my credit card. And I think that some people get really upset when they hear that. But there are certain situations where that's okay. You know, we've taken almost $400,000 in loans for our D2C business. I know Jeff has taken huge lines of credit for Amazon. Those have interest built in. There's really no different. Like you're gonna pay interest regardless. So if you're gonna take lots of money, you're gonna pay interest on it. If you can avoid interest, great. Personally, what I do, and maybe this is because I'm super conservative, I always try to hold as much cash to cover the debt. Like I don't think I could sleep at night if I didn't have enough cash in the business to cover all of the potential debt that I have on the business. And some of the rare occurrences where it might dip slightly under during peak Q4. But most of the time I'm not trying to over leverage where I have $200,000 in debt and $20 in the bank. That I would have an anxiety attack. So, if I have 40,000 in the bank and I have 55,000 on the credit card, like, okay, like I can make that work. But yeah, what you don't want is like, I see some of the guys, 6 figures in debt with a prayer, and a bunch of inventory, and that works until it doesn't, which is what until Amazon gates you or until something happens. And you see a lot of success stories there, but what you don't see is a lot of like the people who had to couldn't afford to pay rent anymore. And I just never wanted to be someone who pushed people to do that. So that's my little spiel on credit cards.
I mean, you kind of see it. You see all the people on the Instagram, Twitter, and all the stuff, and then their account's just not there anymore. Like you don't see them at all anymore. They're not doing anything anymore. It's because something happened and they probably didn't end up so well. But yeah, you're right. A lot of people don't jump on there and say, "Look, I screwed this up and I need to fix this, and here's what I'm going to do." A lot of people just give up, say I'm done.
I'm saying it because I lived the experience, right? Like year 2, so it was 2018. I left my job, hated it, managing a lot of people, working long hours, and I was doing okay. I think I was doing like 250,000 on Amazon, which at the time I didn't need much more than that because it was $1,200 in rent. Like my life was not very expensive. I had no kids, and so I went full time, and I failed, and I lost money. For like those 10 months, I ended up more in the red after the 10 months were done because I had to pay groceries and rent and things out of my Amazon money for the first time. Because when you have a job and Amazon, it's amazing. But then as soon as you switch to just Amazon, it's not just that you have to make enough to cover your monthly bills. You got to make enough to cover your monthly bills and money to reinvest and the 60-day to 90-day turn cycle. And so it ends up going on credit cards or other kind of debt. And it's a really scary place to feel because you feel like a failure. For me, I went back to work and I turned it around. And by 2020, I was able to go quit that job, and I haven't had to work, a quote unquote normal job since. But yeah, it happens, and I think it's important to talk about.
Well, and there's a few cards out there that I know, like the Amex Plum is one of them that has like a 60-day, on it where you don't have to pay it all on the 30 days. You can go through with it. Now, 60 days is still, the cycle of that is typically I'm not getting my money back from the point of when I buy it until the 60-day goes up.
Heavy FBM and you're selling things.
Yes, yeah, that's the difference. And so yeah, making sure that you pay that off, because if you don't, like, it's not like a normal credit card where you have like the Amex where they'll cut your limits immediately. Instead of having like a no limit essentially on it, they'll start imposing limits where you won't be able to buy as much, and then you get yourself in trouble if you can't keep that up. But like there's someone posted, Andre here. He mentioned that having credit cards and having a line of credit, or allowed him to get a line of credit with like Navy Federal. So yes, having things that you can show credit and build your credit with your business is absolutely important. And yes, you should have that. Now, there's ways to build your credit without getting so far into it where you can't pay it off. And Saul, like you said, like you can still build great credit by having money ready to pay it off and pay it off at the right time, so you're not getting hit with the really heavy interest charges.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I pay interest now. I'm more okay with interest now if I need to, because they're usually on holds than anything else.
I see a favorited comment in there.
Yeah, go birds. Yeah, with the credit cards and the interest, I mean, I think it's just important to, and I forget what I was going to say there, but those ones where you have the 0% for more than 30 days, the problem with those that I always struggle with is, like, you're always, to scale, you're trying to push your credit limit, right? Like, hey, I got 50 grand available credit limit. I'm going to spend 50 and I want to spend 80K. Well, I spend my 50. Now I have to prepay down my debt so that I can get to that 80K. So if you're taking your credit card and, utilizing it for 12 months free, well, now you've killed that credit limit and you can't purchase products. Obviously, you're not paying interest, but it's just something that, to me, you need to be careful with utilizing. And that's why I never got the Plum card, or, like, to me, I want to pay it off and move on to being able to purchase more. Again, when you're new and maybe you happen to have some credit and you're not hitting your credit limits, then yeah, great, utilize that. But from my perspective, you want to build that credit limit, and then when you are ready to take loans, to me, a line of credit's going to be a way you want to look at versus carrying it on a credit card. You go to a local bank and, I shouldn't say it's too hard, but, you definitely can, usually, under 100K is much easier than over 100K is what I've figured out. And, the beauty of a line of credit is it just sits there, and then when you use it, you're not paying for it until you utilize it, and then you can still have your credit card limit, as well. And it's one of those things that, and even with, as you start to spend, you can utilize the credit cards, and you're pushing against your credit limits. Then you utilize the credit card companies against themselves. If you have a good credit limit with Amex, but you don't have a good one with Cap One, call up Cap One and, hey, I want to spend 200K on your card, but you gave me a 30K limit, and I got 120 on Amex. Why don't you give me 120 limit, and I'll put all that charge on you, and you can really sort of, again, you got to be at that level where they want your business. If you're spending $500 to $2,000, it's not much, but as you start to scale and really start to push it, that they can really start to compete for your business, as well as give you some cool perks and stuff. So
yeah, I think that's key too, is like getting percentage back. Like I'm not going to use my Plum as much if I know that I'm getting 2% back on something else. It doesn't sound like a lot, but 2% back on your total spend for the year is a lot of money. I mean, why would you want to give that money away?
Yeah. And so what cards do I use then? So for me, it's always been, as I've started to push, is what cards give me the greatest credit limit, right? But ultimately, I think it's important to understand what your needs are, or what your wants are, right? Like if you're not maxing out your credit cards, then you want to use the one that maximizes what interests you, right? Like, is it, credit card rewards, or is it, cash back? I tend to put most of my stuff on Capital One. I have a Capital One Spark that gives me 2%. And I have the Chase Business Premier that gives me, I think, what is it, 3% over? Is it 3% or 2.5% when you spend over your 5K in a transaction? So, I use that one as much as I can. The Chase one as much as I can, but that limits, like, my Cap One. I think I have about 750K on my Cap One and 750K on my Amex, and then I have 130 on my Chase card. So Chase can only go so far, but I'm at the point where rewards don't matter to me anymore. Like, I have 10 million in travel rewards that I just difficult for me to use. So I'd rather just take the cash back. But as you're, yeah, and I'm trying to flash. It's just, when you spend 10 to 15 million a year on credit cards for 5 years straight, you start to gather some points. So for me, I just, it's a matter of finding that card that fits what your need is. If it's if you're just trying to get credit limit, to me, Amex has always been the best. I know people have had some trouble with the financial reviews and them slashing limits, but for me, Amex has always been the easiest to scale up. Chase has been the hardest, and then Capital One to me is one that once you build a relationship with another company that gives you a good amount, they want your business. When you're just starting out, they don't want your business, and it's hard to get them up. But if you're spending 6 figures a month, especially pushing 200, 500K, then you can call up not just call up Capital One, but you connect with a Capital One rep and say, look, I'm going to I spend 500K a month and I want to do it on Capital One. Then they'll match it. So
I will say the customer support on Amex is my favorite by far. Like I get a hold of them immediately. I've never been put on hold for anything with them, and I get it discussed and figured out real quickly whatever I have to do. But like you said, they do only try to do reviews of finances like every 6 months or something like that. So like if they increase your limit by whatever amount, they're probably not going to look at it again for 6 months. Even if you're getting like massive amounts more revenue in, they're still not going to really look at it very easily. You're going to have to fight for that.
I do not know if Cap One has any cards that don't have a 30-day payback on mine or on 30-day.
I don't use Cap One. I have not had a need. Chase I agree. Chase can be like one of the more annoying for scale, but I will say they are like one of the easiest to get approved. And like brand new LLC.
I agree. They're the easiest for business, and they're easiest and have the best like reward options. They have a lot of good like travel options. The Ultimate Rewards program is good, and that's definitely where I'd start. Once you start sort of maxing those out, then I'd just probably shift to Amex, because to me, Amex is the one that you can, you're more likely to get that mid 6-figure credit limit. Then again, I've heard that Chase can be a little bit better if you have your do your banking with them as well. But I think
Chase allows you to get multiple of the same type of card too. Like you can like they might not up your limit, but you can get a second card on the same account. Like they do some weird stuff.
A period of time that you have to wait. And then Chase allows you to combine limits.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I mean, ultimately, usually what it is Chase looks at it as we're going to give you 300K limit. How do you want to split it across your cards? So if you get approved for another card, they may give you a small limit, but for instance, again, I did this with the Chase Ink Premier, right? Like I have the Chase Ink, whatever, the one that just gives you unlimited, I think. So it's 1.5% on everything, but it's worthless now that I have the Ink Premier that's I think 2%. So, and I had a higher limit. I just moved that down to like 2K or 5K and then put everything on the Chase Ink Premier.
Yeah. Combining them is cool.
This question, Jeff.
Paying off your timing from date of order. Yeah. So, I mean, we pay off everything. I have an unfair advantage. I sold textbooks 20 years ago on Amazon. So I have daily payouts with no reserves. So as soon as I sell something, it goes into my ability to sort of check it out. So, so that's one of the, the benefits that I have, and it's difficult for newer sellers that you don't have to deal. You have to wait two weeks. So that helps speed up my ability to pay these things off.
I mean, that is how people get into a debt cycle when they don't have daily payouts, which most people don't, and they have a reserve, and then they buy a bunch of stuff. They max out their credit card month 1, but they don't get paid until month 3. That's why, like, you gotta, 0% is great at first if you really want to go that route. But I think, starting with some cash, building up, and then we talked about earlier, building slow, like building within your means. Amazon's not going anywhere. Like go in seller forums, you think the sky's falling every 2 minutes, but like, Amazon's not going anywhere. Arbitrage is not going anywhere. You don't need, it's March, right? You don't need to hit this so hard that by April, you're spending 100K. Like, if I had a a $5,000 limit. Maybe you spend $2,000 first month, etc. So you just keep rolling it until you're able to pay off. Ideally, you're able to pay off your credit card full every month with the profits that you got, with the revenue you got, which was sold 2 months ago. That's why when people talk about taking time off, which obviously if you have a staff, it's great. Like, Jeff can take that off because he has a team. But if it's just you and you're taking time off, you're not going to feel it that month, but you will feel it 60 to 90 days from now. When you stop sending an inventory, you stop purchasing, and then suddenly there's going to be a gap in your revenue, and your credit card's still due from the inventory you purchased before. So either you got to go hard, you got to have like a big chunk where it's 1 month of like amazingness, and that keeping trickle, or you got to have some plan. You can't, unfortunately, just take 45 days off and expect to have, the revenue in 3 months of the same caliber, because it's just, you're going to see that delayed gratification, and at the same time, you're going to see delayed cause and effect of not sourcing. But yes, grow it within your means. I mean, that's like what we all three preach. Like, I don't want anyone going into crazy debt to start a business. Amazon's still one of the cheapest businesses to start on the planet. Doesn't mean you gotta, spend $10K to do it. Just
I mean, you also got to pay attention to, like, when you're first starting out, if you do the same thing where you send stuff in and then you wait a while to see how that stuff does, the stuff's not in immediately. Like, unless you're doing FBM, you're not going to see that immediately being sold and go through. It's going to take a while. So if you're waiting to see how it does and then you go buy again, you're going to have so many ebbs and flows with your cash flow that it's going to be tough to keep up with any kind of that credit card debt. So you're going to have to just continuously buy and maybe not spend everything that you possibly have all 1 week. Like, spread it out. If you have $10,000, maybe don't spend $10,000 that month. Hold some back so you can pay some of the at least the minimum payments on the stuff, so you don't put yourself into trouble. And then you keep doing that, and then each month you have to do that less and less. And like you said, you can eventually have enough money coming in where you can pay off what you now just took out.
Unfortunately, it happens at scale too. I mean, I'm sure.
We
all know, people doing 2-3 million a year that live arguably paycheck to paycheck, because they're living Amazon revenue month to Amazon revenue month, and one disruption in the business, it causes a massive cascade of, they just can't pay their credit card bills, they can't pay their staff. So like any other business, you have to be, cash flow is king. You have to be solvent, or you're really going to suffer. And that starts with, at the beginning, starts with how you're building this from the ground up. Any habits you learn today are going to be the things you carry through when you're doing the big figures that you want. And a lot of those bad habits do not scale well.
Yeah. And to sort of bring this question back, because I sort of answered the first part, but the timing from date to order to prep to inbound, I mean, that has just grown over the years. It used to be, I'd buy, we'd prep it out, we'd ship it out, and boom, it's available sale within a week or two. But now it is just getting slower and slower, and it is a challenge of, hey, I order something, and if it's OA, it's going to take a week to get there. Then if we, lots of times we'll put it maybe on an LTL truck, so we may take 3 to 5 days to prep that whole truck, get that shipped out. Then then who knows when Amazon's going to check it in 2 weeks, and then then it's on back ordered. So we easily assume that we're talking a month out from purchase to FBA live. So you have to have the cash available and plan for that, because you can't flip things quickly. And then obviously for those of you that aren't blessed with daily payouts, then you got to wait 2 more weeks after it's sale to get paid. So it's just something you got to plan for. And that's one of the huge benefits of MF, especially when you are cash strapped and early starting. And one of the reasons I do a lot of it in Q4, one, just because of the timing check-ins, but also you can flip cash so much quicker, because it's you get it. I use this Walmart example all the time, but in Q4 there's many times where I'm just sourcing at 5 a.m. I order something, it arrives in the warehouse by lunchtime, and we've sold it by 4 o'clock, and you're packing it up and getting it shipped out that same day OA order. So I won't have to pay it for it in 30 days, and I'll see those funds within 48 hours. So, but those delays are horrible. and it's definitely
And he mentions the prep center here. This is also the value of looking at different prep centers, because some prep centers, depending on where they're located, there's obviously more than one tax-free state. That Montana area,
Montana and Oregon, you're playing with fire
rough.
shipping to them as prep centers, as far as I'm concerned.
I love that. Was my favorite prep center, was in actually both Montana and Oregon.
I've done both.
But yeah, I mean, if you're in a prep center over there, switching to like a Delaware prep center alone could be the thing that makes it better for you. But yeah, obviously, if you can bring it in house and pack it and ship it same day it arrives, you're going to be a prep center in most cases, just because they're probably going to take a few days to get your stuff out if you have like 1 a week shipments kind of deal.
I will say mine's in Montana, and as of probably 8 months ago, almost everything ends up going directly to the West Coast. It's and then it gets moved around from then. So it has taken longer to see my stuff actually get able to be purchased, because eventually it makes itself over to the East Coast, because that's where the majority of things are being sold in general. So if you do have a prep center that's more on the East Coast, it probably is going to start to at least get sold quicker, and then eventually trickle over and get across the country and do all the other things where there's a little bit less sales than what's on the East Coast. I think it's something like east of the Mississippi is like the majority of the country.
I mean, they charge you more with the placement fees too. Send West Coast too. So it's like I know we had a wholesale, large wholesale shipment, and we're like, oh, let's just get a West Coast prep center to ship it out. And then I started looking at the numbers. I'm like, it's cheaper for me to, send the truck across country and prep it myself than, pay a prep center when I have to, eat these, placement fees. Obviously, it's a different story if you're not using, avoiding the placement fees and doing optimized shipments, but that's a challenge as well.
Yeah, I mean, the majority of the time, the optimized has worked better for me. We've tried to run it both ways, and it's almost always, at least I know what I'm going to be paying. I know a rough idea, like per pound, but it's high. I mean, there's no way around it. I mean, it's a lot. And then, like I said, if it's going to the West Coast, it's sitting for a while, and then eventually, makes its way through. But yeah, it's definitely the difference of having something on the East Coast versus having something in the middle of the country or the West Coast. It does impact the amount of time that it takes between when I buy it to when it's available to be purchased, and cost of shipping because it's sending it further.
Loans, from my perspective in banks, I've always played prime plus one. You get a variable rate, it's going to be where prime, and then they're going to add 1%. There's sometimes an origination cost of a couple $100. And usually, I think you tend to pay it once, and then the loan can, go for 2 or 3 years, or at least line of credit. I try to avoid term loans, because with a term loan, you're taking all the money, you're paying it off, and then that's it. So there's no, like, the line of credit I can tap into, pull out, and have.
Lines of credits are harder to get for sure. Especially as an Amazon seller. But I've never taken a loan from Amazon themselves.
Oh, wow. Never.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did. I did take a percentage loan, and you got to kind of look at it, because it's giving you it, and what the loan is, if in a percentage of if it was for a year, but your term might be for 6 months or 3 months, or whatever you end up picking it at. So you kind of got to do the calculation a little bit to see what your actual percentage that you're going to be paying for that. And a lot of times it's pretty cheap if you need something quick and just want to throw it in there, and then you're not worried about the line of credit still being there at the point when you do need to use it, because sometimes that happens where you show that you have $100,000 line of credit, and then you go to tap into it and they pay you once, and the next time you go to pool they don't want to give you money again. So there are weird things that can happen with that.
Yeah, I don't like term loans in general. We've taken most of our loans are a flat fee and a general payback period, but it's a % of sales, as opposed to a, like, you're going to pay this back in 6 months and you're going to owe us $8,000 a month every month. I much prefer, like, here's a percentage of sales, because that way, like, if the business tanks, I'm only paying a percentage of the tank. You're not on the hook for this huge number. And sometimes the APR can come out really nicely, depending on what you believe your business is going to do. Obviously, they're banking on you growing and getting the money back fast. But yeah, I mean, I think our single biggest loan was like in the low 2s. and that was an amazingly 4.5%.
Ooh, nice.
Which was like I almost thought they like screwed up when they like sent us the offer, and I didn't ask questions. I just
they left the one out.
Yeah.
most of them tend to be in like the 8 to 12 range.
Yep,
I would say like,
Yeah.
like the average I've seen.
Yeah, I think 12 is what I normally kind of see it at. And for anybody, there's some people are asking like, what's the line of credit, different things. Just look it up what that is on there, so you can kind of see the differences of it. And if there are people that are not used to understanding how credit cards work, when the times to optimally buy, and how you pay, your interest on it, how that all works, look up, online, just like when's the optimal time to buy things on a credit card. And there's all sorts of forums and different things that explain to you all the intricacies of how to buy, how to pay ahead of your time when it's actually due, and all the different things to kind of save on getting hit with interest, the higher interest fees.
We're never seeing. I mean, I doubt I'll ever see 4.5 again. Like I don't know what happened, but I wasn't gonna complain. I can see what my current best offer is right now. Out of curiosity.
Let's see.
It's just from Amazon, you're saying, what the offer is?
No, I don't think I'll ever do an Amazon loan. I'm just not a fan. Looks like my best percentage that I'm seeing, like just from like the main place that we go, is God. About 12, 10, about 10, actually, no, I'm sorry. About 10% right now. But as I think we'll get, if we push, we probably do 8%. Is probably where I would land if I needed a loan today.
Yeah, sounds about right. I mean, 2022 prime rate was 3.5%, I believe. So 3.25 in 2020. So
I don't know when, it was 23 was when we had our 4.5.
Yeah, no, that for 23 was, yeah, I mean, 23 was 8%. So you that was a deal and a half there you pulled off.
Yeah, I got confused.
Because I mean, which prime rate?
We'll probably take a few more questions here and then start to wrap things up. So if anybody's got some questions going, there's one here on software stack here from Laura.
I mean, this is a nuanced question because it's really going to depend on you.
Yeah, what you're exactly
selling. I know
selling.
nothing about you, Laura. But like as far as how you're sourcing, what marketplaces you're sourcing for, Smart Scout is generally like very obviously wholesale forward, although you can use it as an OA RA seller as well. But it's usually more marketed towards like a wholesale PL type person. But yeah, it would really depend on how you're sourcing and what you.
Yeah, doing it. You got to have Flip Alert, of course.
Well, listen, from your mouth to everyone's ears.
I know we had it in our Q4 group and people loved it. Even the feed that we had in there, just given that without getting into all the intricacies that your software can do, people were buying straight off of there. I think Deke that's in this group was saying that he did awesome off of the stuff that was just provided in the feed. I know I use AZ Insight for my primary sourcing on day to day going through stuff. I think Jeff uses a combination of a lot of different softwares.
There's new ones every day, it feels like. So I mean, it really is going to depend on what it is your needs are. I mean, I love the Flip Alert love in the chat. Obviously, Flip Alert's designed for A2A, ATW. We're going to be doing a little Walmart to Walmart coming up, but obviously, if you're doing RA, like it's not going to be most helpful. In RA, it's there are going to be different kinds of software out there that's going to make your scanning and store a lot easier. There's RA lists that aren't really software, but certainly can help. Lots of different things that you can do. As far as Discord and coaching, these guys, Jeff and Joe, have a free Discord. I always blank on the name.
FBA Basecamp.
FBA Basecamp. That's what it is. I'm sure it's in somewhere on YouTube.
Yeah, it's in the YouTube link there, and looks like
FBABasecamp.com.
Yeah.
It's just a free open chat. You can do stuff, and I think the only paid one they do is Q4. There's a Q4 group these guys run. And then I'm the owner of the Buy Box which is the buybox.io. That website's up, but the link on there is not. So you can just head to my Twitter if you're interested about it. And that's all year round monthly fee where we kind of have conversations like this, but whenever you want, as opposed to just having to wait and pop on Twitter.
Plus, also got one-on-one coaching in it. There's a lot of things.
We have,
it's not just
we have 8 staff members. They offer one-on-one coaching, all included, guides, content, flip alert, software, kind of whatever you need. Been around for 6 years, so we've seen a lot. The group itself has been around for 6 years, I should say. Obviously a lot of us selling in it have been around longer. But yeah, it's one of my pride and joys.
And with the buy box, you also get access to you still get access to Flip Alert, right?
You do, but that is coming to an end. So people that are in the group, people in the group, they're gonna be grandfathered in. So if you're in the group now, don't worry. But likely at the end of this month, that'll end. So anyone that joins in April, it won't be included anymore.
Sounds like whoever's on this call that wants to try it out should probably join it. They get both those.
Yeah, you get both. It's a good deal. Yeah, one Q4. Q4 Syndicate. That's the name of Jeff and Joe. That was a great group. I mean, there's a lot of Q4 groups out there, but I mean, you guys came prepared. It was year 1 doing it too, so excited for year 2.
Yeah, we'll let people know like the day before we're launching it this time.
Yeah, a little more prep is never a bad thing.
It's one of those things that we want to make sure that whatever, just like you're doing with the buy boxes, you want to make sure that whatever you're providing is vastly, richer than the value or the cost of of what you're charging people. And we want to make sure that we can put the time and effort to do it right, and then still not neglect any of the other groups or softwares or projects or companies that we run. So we don't want our own storefront to get damaged because we're spending so much time doing the other things. So when we finally decided that, this was a good point to do it, it was pretty late in the season to hit it. So this year, if we're going to be doing it again, we're going to, hit a lot earlier and let people know ahead of time, and we'll see what happens. Now you had a Walmart group, didn't you?
We did a buy box combo Walmart group. Yeah. To help folks that wanted to do Walmart. I don't know what's going to happen there this year. With Walmart in general. I mean, same as you. It's Q2. I'm not thinking that far ahead yet. It's actually Q1 still, right? It's Q1.
Still Q1, not even a Q2.
I'm confused. But yeah, I mean, I think Walmart's amazing. There's gonna be a lot of great Walmart related content in 2025 overall. We've been talking about it in our group for about a year now, but there's more and more courses, more content, more software. You see, but Walmart software is exploding, right? It's just like everyone's trying to make it in, kind of make their name in that space, and I love it because the more people that want to do it, just the better it becomes. You got more competition and more data that's available to everyone. It's rising tide.
Cool. All right. Well, if there's no more questions here, I think we'll wrap it up, and we still have a lot of topics to talk about that we can talk about either next week or then on. If you all have, we're going to try to do this either regularly or semi-regularly. You might switch the days here and there and switch the times a little bit. But if you have any questions that you want to be answered with it, you can always reach out to us either through comments on YouTube or Discord group or Twitter or wherever. And then we'll try to answer them on these calls and try to, have everybody succeed.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun.
All right.
Appreciate all the questions.
Thanks for hanging out with us, everybody, and we appreciate it.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Have a good one.